my voice, but I have never seen anything like it.
Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. It's a very special episode of NBA Shoot-Around. We're talking Kenny Atkinson, the Nets' recently fired head coach. What does he do from here, and what do the Nets do moving forward? Also, got to talk about King James and the incredible run he's been on right now and what this does for not only the Lakers, but the NBA as a whole. But first, I need to mention, this was requested by Jack Pirtle on Twitter.com. You can tweet at me at Andrew_Zimmel on Twitter, and I will get to your requests as soon as possible. Also, you can mention me in the YouTube comments, and I'll try to get to you there as well. So if you have a specific podcast or topic that you want us to cover, hit me up, and we'll try to get on it. So let's talk Nets. So the Nets get rid of Kenny Atkinson, a coach who kind of reestablished the culture in Brooklyn. When Brooklyn moved from New Jersey and we kind of had the, okay, what do we really call these guys? Are the Nets going to overtake the Knicks as New York's team? All of this type of stuff swirling around. The Nets, of course, make the horrendous trade to bring in Paul Pierce, KG, and Jason Terry, and they give up all of their first-round picks for the next 4 years. One of those first-round picks turning into Jason Tatum, and what we've seen what he's been able to do for Boston. But the Nets were kind of stuck. They didn't really have anywhere to go. They didn't know where they were. They kind of were in NBA limbo. When you don't have picks, you're kind of stuck taking the stuff at the bottom of the heap. You know, when all the good players are gone out of the draft, you get stuck with some of the unsigned free agents. Those are the guys you're really picking from. You also had NBA stars who were old, Darren Williams, Joe Johnson, KG. All those guys, their careers kind of abruptly ended. The NBA passed them very quickly. So the Nets were stuck. They hired Kenny Atkinson. He's able to reestablish the culture. They get guys like Spencer Dinwiddie, LeVert, Jarrett Allen out of Texas, lifelong Longhorn Jarrett Allen. You get those type of guys in there, and the program kind of turns itself around and fixes itself. They're able to trade for D'Angelo Russell, who was kind of stuck in L.A. L.A. didn't really want him anymore, so they absorbed the contract of Timothy Mozgov, got D'Angelo Russell with it, and from there, Kenny Atkinson was able to flip the entire culture around. They made a run at the 8th seed last year, and they made the playoffs for the first time in a while. So why would you get rid of a coach like that? Why would you get rid of a guy who is able to reestablish the entire system, fix the program, everything moving forward? He reminds me a lot of David Fizdale in that way. That Fizdale came into Memphis. Memphis was a good team, not a great team. He kind of came in there, reestablished what Memphis was going to be, the grit and grind type of guys. The analytics didn't really matter as much because you had Marc Gasol, because you had Mike Conley. You don't need to shoot a ton of threes. You can still win games like that. And they played in a Western Conference Finals game. So he reminds me of Fizdale in that way. Fizdale, of course, gets fired in New York because they wanted a quick solution, and Fizdale, kind of like Kenny Atkinson, has a long 4-year, 5-year plan. So Kenny leaves, they fire him, and now you're stuck in a situation, if you're Brooklyn, where you don't have a head coach. You don't really know who the next guy is going to be. There's already been rumors that Ty Lue is going to be the next head coach of the Nets. Of course, Lue right now is a Lakers assistant. The Lakers are on a tear, which we're going to get to in a second. So why would he want to leave L.A.? Why would you want to get rid of Ty Lue in L.A.? Why would Ty Lue leaves LeBron's side? Look, LeBron has carried a lot of guys to success. You look at guys like, James Jones, Mike Miller, Udonis Haslem. He's been a dude that can throw those guys on his back and carry them to the finish line. Ty Lue, as a coach, he's kind of done something similar with. Granted, Lue made a couple really good moves in the 2016 NBA Finals. All credit to him for flipping that series. They were down 3-1. His coaching, in part, got them back and into the series and had them win Game 7. But for the most part, Lue has not done a ton that I'm impressed by as an NBA head coach. So why would he be the next coach of the Brooklyn Nets? Well, it's very simple. You go back to that 2016 team. The point guard of that team, of course, was Kyrie Irving. Kyrie already is kind of pulling some strings in the background. And that's where the story is going to, I think, shift. No one can look at Kenny Atkinson, what he did in Brooklyn, and say, well, he didn't do enough to keep them involved. He didn't do enough to keep his job, because I thought he did plenty. I think that if you look at his tenure as the head coach of the Nets, there's not a lot of failures and a lot of successes. Getting D'Angelo Russell in that Mozgov deal, granted, Russell's not the best NBA point guard, and granted, I wouldn't take him over a ton of guys, but he was able to kind of change Russell's trajectory as an NBA player. I think a lot of people were already penciling him in as a bust. So you're able to take a guy like Russell, flip him into the type of player that you can trade in that KD deal over the summer. If D'Angelo Russell was a bust, if he wasn't able to produce the way that we saw him produce in the playoffs, I don't think the Warriors were going to make a trade like that. It was a sign and trade. People forget about that. That they didn't get Durant didn't leave them. They got something for him. Okay? So I don't see a lot of failures in Kenny Anderson's system. But when you look at Kyrie and you look at the history that he's had, this is going to be his, I think, 5th head coach in 6 years, something to that regard. Look, he's never had a head coach for more than 2 full seasons. He had Brad Stevens for about a season and a half before he had that injury. He had David Blatt for half a season. He had Mike Brown for half a season. He had Ty Lue for, I think, a season and a half. He is not the type of player that you can coach. He's not coachable. And I said this when he left Boston. Brad Stevens is, if not one of the 5 best coaches in the NBA. I put him in the same conversation as Carlisle, as Spoelstra, as Pop. So when Kyrie can't work with those guys, I'm not going to say his career stunk at that point. I'm not going to say that he's stuck in a certain spot, because a lot of players can become coachable. I know we saw it with Steven Jackson. He kind of was a head case, and then he got with Pop, and then he got with a couple other pretty good coaches, and he was able to fix kind of the way that he looks at things. And that happens with a lot of players. A lot of players get a lot too soon. Kyrie was asked to carry the Cleveland Cavaliers franchise at his rookie season. And, once you get to that level and you win a championship and you hit one of the biggest shots in NBA history, some of that goes to your head. And what he did with Kenny Anderson now, it's been said 1,000 times that if Durant and Kyrie wanted him there, if they wanted Coach Anderson there, that he'd still be there. And I think that that's fair. I think that there's a little bit to go into that. And I don't think Kyrie asked for this guy's job. I don't think he said, get rid of this guy. But I also don't think that he went to bat for him. And KD's not playing this season, so he doesn't really care. No matter what happens, everything's going to change when he comes back. So what has been rumored to have happened is that the Brooklyn Nets' new owner has kind of stepped in, kind of asked some players, asked around, what do you like? Do you like this guy? Do you not like this guy? And that's what got him fired, not so much Kyrie. It's interesting, though, where the Nets go moving forward, because that's kind of what Jack's question was what do the Nets do going forward now that they have fired their head coach? I don't think they make the playoffs this year. I think that they miss the playoffs entirely. I think they're going to bottom out, potentially get an okay pick. I don't think they're going to do anything with that pick. I don't see that pick playing a ton next season. But I think that they're going to get rid of some guys this offseason. I would see Jarrett Allen probably is going to be on the trading block. I'd see Spencer Dinwiddie probably is going to be on the trading block. Because when Kyrie and KD come back, potentially fully healthy next year, that entire system is going to change. I don't know if you're watching a ton of Nets games right now, but with Kyrie out, with KD out, they can kind of lean back on what they did last year. A lot of ball movement, a lot of guys getting involved, a lot of dudes working together in that team atmosphere. You look at Quinn Snyder's Utah Jazz, and there was a play that was on Twitter a couple nights ago of them passing the ball around and really getting everybody involved. The Nets remind me of that a lot. When everything's clicking with them, they can run a system. Jarrett Allen's a good enough passer. He's doing a good enough job developing as a player that I would say that he's okay distributing the ball from the top of the key. Now, is he like Nikola Jokic? No. Is he Rudy Gobert? No. But he's doing a good enough job, I think, being able to move the ball around. The opposite can be said about DeAndre Jordan, who's on his last leg of the NBA. A couple years ago, 5 years ago, you'd say him and Dwight Howard were two of the more fun, entertaining big men to watch. Now it's kind of sad to watch both those guys play, but for different reasons, right? It's sad to watch Dwight play because he used to be Superman. Now he's clearly Clark Kent, lost a ton of weight. He's able to do some good things with the Lakers, not nearly enough that you'd like him to, not nearly enough to start for the Lakers. If he was a starter for the Lakers, if he was the guy that was doing the tip, I would have a lot of questions. DeAndre is kind of the same way. They sat Jarrett Allen for DeAndre Jordan. I get it. I know why. It's because DeAndre is friends with Kyrie and KD. You want to keep all those guys happy. But it's similar to the Clippers in a way that if this doesn't work out in 2 years, if the Nets don't compete for a title next year with KD and Kyrie fully healthy, then I could totally see both those guys leaving. I could see them washing their hands of this and the Nets being back in the exact same position that they were. Why should that worry Nets fans? Well, it's simple. The way the NBA has been going The way this is a star-driven league, and I don't think anybody hates the NBA for that. I don't think anybody's going to say, oh, I don't like the NBA, there's too many stars. No, that's the reason we buy tickets. That's the reason that we wear jerseys, is to support these star players. But the problem is that the Nets haven't been able to do any homegrown players because they trade all their picks away. They haven't been able to develop much talent outside of Dinwiddie and LeVert and Jared Allen, who all those guys potentially are going to be trade pieces in the future, trying to get a third star to put with KD and Kyrie. So if both those guys leave in the next offseason, not this coming one, but the next one if the Nets don't compete, then you're going to be stuck back at square one where you were before you hired Kenny Anderson. So if I was a Nets fan, I would be a little bit worried. You need to see what KD has before you can really put up the red flags. If he comes back at 90 or 95% of the player that he was, well, you're still looking at top 5 player in the league. But if he comes back at 75, 80% of what he was, well, now you got a slow shooter. And I don't know how many of you guys watched T-Mac. I don't know how many of you guys were around when T-Mac was at his peak. But when T-Mac came back from some of those knee injuries, you're looking at a guy who was a little bit slow off the jump, a guy who could still create his own shot but could not do it nearly as well. I would be worried at a floor because nobody's been like KD. We've never had a player like KD before. If he comes back at 90% of what he was, well, you're looking at a T-Mac type player. KD does a little bit better on defense. He's a little bit better at distributing the ball than T-Mac was. But I would still say that I'm looking at a guy who, is he going to fit in a system? Kyrie doesn't. We looked at what he was doing with the Nets before they fired Anderson. He was a guy that was, all right, everybody get out of my way. I'm taking this guy ISO. Not a lot of passing, not a lot of very good playmaking on Kyrie's part, which is a shame because his rookie and sophomore year in the league, he was one of the better passers. Very good court vision. When he was playing with LeBron kind of took a little bit of that away because he was bringing the ball up a lot. And he was kind of the guy that was dribbling the ball. But at the same time, I'd still like to see Kyrie turn back into that playmaker. Hopefully we get that with KD coming back. All right, let's switch topics. Thank you again to Jack Pirtle for requesting the Nets topic. Let's switch topics to LeBron. This is going to be real quick, guys. I don't think that he's the MVP. I think Giannis is still the guy. I love LeBron. I still think that he's one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player of all time. I'm always going to be on that corner saying that he's the best athlete we've had in the history of professional sports. And I know we just did a Jim Thorpe podcast, but I think LeBron is that special of a guy. If you asked him to go train for a marathon, I bet you he could run a very good time. That's the type of guy that he is. So when we get this 2-game win streak right now over the Bucks and the Clippers and this weekend that he's had, I always say this. I say that a Friday night game and a Sunday game matter a lot more than a Wednesday or a Thursday game because more eyes are going to be on you. And I get it. The inside the NBA does a really good job of promoting that, and they do a really good job. People tune in to see Chuck and Shaq. But Saturday, Sunday, those type of games, if you have a big game and it carries into the week, well, now you got a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week news cycle. And this LeBron James win over the Bucks, that matters a lot because now the Lakers are, I think, 2 games out from the number 1 overall record in the NBA. Beating the Clippers matters because they beat them. The Clippers had beat them on Christmas, and that's the last thing we kind of remember is Pat Bev locking up LeBron on that last shot. Whether it was a tip on Pat or a tip on LeBron, Lakers still lost. So now you get a system, or a situation, I should say, where LeBron and Anthony Davis could come out in this next 18 games, really establish themselves in the Western Conference, really establish themselves as the best record in the NBA. If they get the number 1 overall record in the NBA and they get home court advantage throughout the playoffs, it's going to be real hard for a team to come in and beat the Lakers, I think. With that fan base behind them, and with that just, they haven't been to the playoffs since 2013. The Lakers are the team of the NBA. Like, the Celtics have more rings, but I think when you look at the branding of the NBA, I really do think the Lakers are the brand. When the Lakers are good, more people tune in. So I 100% believe that if the Lakers get home court throughout the playoffs and throughout the finals, you're going to have a situation where the Lakers are going to be the favorite to win the NBA title. All that said, Giannis has still had the better season. He still has the better stats. He still has done more for his team. If you took LeBron off the team, they still have Anthony Davis. If you put Giannis on any team in the league, they're making the playoffs. That's the type of guy that Giannis is. So I still have Giannis as my MVP. I need to see a little bit more. Maybe in this next 18 games, he really falls off and LeBron can surpass him. Right now, I'd have LeBron at 2 and Luka at 3 and Harden at 4. but I need a little bit more. Either I need a little bit more of a fall off from Giannis, or I need LeBron to really go supernova going into the playoffs and really hit playoff mode right now. I'd prefer him not to. I'd prefer him to save his energy, conserve his energy, and really put it up to another notch in the playoffs. But if he really wants this 5th MVP, he's got to go for it. All right, that's going to do it for the show. We have a lot of good content out. Tomorrow, we're talking to Sam OJ about his NFL draft board. Thursday, we have Alexander Haynes talking to us about the coronavirus and all the biggest news topics. Friday, Film Friday. Got a special guest for you guys for that, so tune into that. Again, thank you to Jack Pirtle. You guys can request episodes 2 if you want. Just tag me on Twitter at Andrew_Zimmel or mention me in the YouTube comments. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.